Bismillah. Let us start. Bismillah. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi wahdahu. Wassalatu wassalamu ala man la nabiyya ba'dahu. وعلى آله وصحبه ومن تمسك بسنته إلى يوم الدين وسلم تسليما كثيرا أما بعد. As we continue the explanation of this tremendous treatise by the great Imam Taqiyuddin Ahmad ibn Abdul Halim ibn Abdul Salam ibn Taymiyyah al-Harrani al-Dimashqi rahimahullah mutawaffa sanat 728, the great Imam, as he continued the explanation of this tremendous treatise entitled Al-Hamawiyyah. With the time now is 7:09 p.m. Wednesday, July 20th, 2022, where it agrees on the Hijri calendar, the 20th of Dhul Hijjah, the year 1443, after the migration of our Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam. We continue in the book. You'll find that the great Imam, that he was bringing his evidences and proofs, substantiating his call, the call to what was correct, and the call clarifying what is the correct belief that pleases Allah ta'ala. So that's how one should look at what Shaykh al-Islam in his authors, in his treatise. You'll find that he's calling the people or reviving of what the people abandoned and left off of what was correct. So you'll find that as we continue in the statement, he says, فَصْلٌ وَنَحْنُ نَذْكُرُ مِنْ أَلْفَاظِ السَّلَفِ بِأَعْيَانِهَا وَأَلْفَاظِ مَنْ نَقَلَ مَذْهَبَهُمْ بِحَسَبِ مَا يَحْتَمِلُهُ هَذَا الْمَوْضِعُ مَا يُعْلَمُ بِهِ مَذْهَبُهُمْ روى أبو بكر البيهقي في الأسماء والصفات. And we already took this with this portion in last class. He said that we mentioned from the statements of the Salaf, the pious predecessors, by their a'yan, by those scholars that had what was considered from the prominent, from the heads, from those who are the most high in status in regards to the religion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, meaning the carriers of those who conveyed the religion, and they had taken their knowledge directly from the companions. You'll find that he says, we now mention, meaning he's saying, this is my call. This is what I'm calling the Muslims to. The call to what is correct, the call that will revive the honor of the Muslims, the call that will truly unite them, and will take them out of the humiliation and the state of disgrace from Allah, and what will bring them together, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by that unification upon this belief, will restore their honor, and will restore their status that they deserve. So my call is substantiated by what the Salaf were upon. Meaning he's saying there's no different than what I'm saying, what they were saying. Those who we consider the prominent from our ummah. So this call is nothing new. I'm just calling you to what was their message, and calling the Muslims to return back to it. So it's as if he's saying, okay, what's your proof? He says, now I'm going to bring it. So what does he say? If you notice in the book, وَنَحْنُ نَذْكُرُ مِنْ أَلْفَاظِ السَّلَفِ. We will now bring the wording of the people from the Salaf, who are at the head of them, who everyone? The companions. That's the Sahaba, whom was Salaf. That you will find that the companions and those who are prominent from them, meaning those who take knowledge or have taken knowledge from the companions, who are the Tabi'een, and those who have taken knowledge from the Tabi'een. He said, وَأَلْفَاظِ مَنْ نَقَلَ مَذْهَبَهُمْ. And the wordings or the words of those who convey their madhab, meaning their belief and their creed, according to what this mawdi', meaning this context of what we're saying, in which we'll what? Of what we've been mentioning prior, in the prior lessons, in which was known by the same exact knowledge and same exact narrations, their madhab. So we'll find, as we mentioned before last class, because this is what we on, I don't want to repeat it because I want to take advantage of the time. Just to quickly mention, Rawa Abu Bakr al-Bayhaqi, as Abu Bakr al-Bayhaqi that he narrated in his book, or he mentioned in his book called Al-Asma' al-Sifat by authentic chain, upon the great Imam al-Awza'i. Like we said, we covered this last class. He said, Al-Imam al-Awza'i was the Imam of Ahl al-Sham, that we know he was from the A'immat al-Dunya fi asr tabi'i tabi'in. He was considered from the A'immat of this Dunya during the time of the tabi'i tabi'in, as we mentioned. He said, قال كنا والتابعون متوافرون. He said, we used to say, and the tabi'un, meaning those who followed the companions, and they were plentiful in number. We all together said unanimously, without any ikhtilaf, we said that Allah is subhanahu wa ta'ala is above the throne. وَنُؤْمِنُ بِمَا وَرَدَتْ بِهِ السُّنَّةِ. We firmly believe in what the sunnah, authentic prophetic traditions of our Prophet ﷺ has narrated of what has been conveyed of the characteristics of Allah. So again, I'll say it again. He said, we and the tabi'un, we will say, indeed Allah is above His throne. We firmly believe of what has been conveyed in the authentic sunnah of His characteristics. What has been firmly conveyed in the authentic sunnah of informing us of His characteristics. So then he goes on to say, فَقَدْ حَكَى الْأَوْزَاعِيُّ وَهُوَ أَحْدُ الْأَئِمَّةِ الْأَرْبَعَةِ. As Al-Awza'i, we said Imam Al-Awza'i, what was his name? Abdur Rahman ibn Amr ibn Yahmad Al-Awza'i, or Abu Amr. His kunya, his name was Abu Amr. But his name is Abdur Rahman ibn Amr ibn Yahmad Al-Awza'i, the Imam of Ahl al-Sham. These were considered the A'immat al-Dunya, the A'imma of the Dunya in the time of the Tabi'in. These were considered for the A'immat al-Dunya, as we find the great Imam Shaykh al-Islam mentions here. He says, الَّذِينَ هُمْ also Malik, Imam Ahl al-Hijaz, wal-Awza'i, Imam Ahl al-Sham. We already covered this last class. Wal-Layth, Imam Ahl al-Misr. We already talked about Layth from the great A'imma from Egypt. He was also considered from the A'immat al-Dunya in the time of the Tabi'in. His kunya was Abu al-Harith al-Layth ibn Sa'd al-Fahmi. Abu al-Harith al-Layth ibn Sa'd ibn Abdur Rahman al-Fahmi, Imam Ahl Misr fil fiqh wal-Hadith. As we know, he was from the great A'imma of the Dunya during the Asr al-Tabi'in, during the time of the Tabi'in. You'll find that, just to give an extra benefit, that Imam al-Awza'i, he was wulida bi, as they say, bi-Qarqashand, or bi-Qarqashand. What was Qarqashand? It's a village which was, they say, at the I think, if I'm not mistaken, there was a location in the southern part of Egypt, more in the southern part. Allah knows best from what comes to my mind right now. But that that village is where Layth ibn Sa'd was born. He was born in that village which was called Qarqashand, and he died, rahimahullah, 145 after the hijrah of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So we know he was from the high tabaqat, the high levels of those who were close to the time of the great of this ummah, who are the Sahaba. Because he was considered from the A'immat al-Dunya, from the scholars of the Dunya, during what time, everyone? Tabi'in. During the time of the Tabi'in, which is very close to the time of the Sahaba, which is very close to what they call Asr al-Nubuwah, the time of prophethood. So the closer that person was to that time, and he was from the people of the Sunnah, then that person was a person of high status. Very high status, where we cling to their understanding of the religion with our molar teeth, because our survival in this world depends on it. Our survival in this world and in the hereafter relies on clinging firmly to what they were upon, especially those who lived during the time, during Asr al-Nubuwah, the time of prophethood. So Layth ibn Sa'd al-Fahmi, the great Imam Abu al-Harith, from the A'imma of Ahl Misr, from Egypt. So we're going to keep going, because also we talked about with Thawri, who's Sufyan ibn Sa'id ibn Masruq, the great Imam, Imam al-Thawri, from Ahl Kufa. So these are because we want to get into the explanation. طيب. وإنما قال الأوزاعي هذا بعد ظهور أمر جهم المنكر لكون الله فوق عرشه والنافي لصفاته ليعرف الناس أن مذهب السلف كان خلاف ذلك. He said you'll find that he says indeed al-Imam al-Awza'i that he said after what had a manifest of the affair of Jahl and Safwan. Jahl and Safwan, the one who propagated and made the method of Jahmiyyah famous. Even though we know that Jahmiyyah, he was not the initial originator or founder of it. The one who came before was Ja'd ibn Dirham. Ja'd ibn Dirham was the founder of the ideologies of the Jahmiyyah, but Jahl ibn Safwan is the one who made it famous. He's the one that had followers until the affair became widespread, until people became affected by those deviant, perverted ideologies and understandings. But the initial affair returned back to Ja'd ibn Dirham in his matter, which we'll talk about when the time comes. But anyway, Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah says, وَنَحْنُ نَذْكُرُ مِنْ أَلْفَاظِ السَّلَفِ بِأَعْيَانِهَا. We mentioned from the statements of the Salaf, from their prominent scholars, the wordings of what was conveyed of their belief and their understanding and their methodology. He says of what this context, what we're mentioning, explains in what it entails. In order for us to know by that knowledge or those narrations, what was their method. So Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah here is explaining, this is my call to you, O Muslims and those who are upon a perverted understanding of Islam. This is my call, and what I'm doing here in this context or in this place is conveying to you my proofs and evidences to substantiate my claim. So now he brings, so he's starting with those who are close of the scholars in the past who lived close to the time of Al-Asr Nubuwah, of the time of prophethood, who was very much, not during the actual time, it was close to the time of prophethood, not during the time. During the time was the Sahaba. And some of the Tabi'een did see, or some of the Tabi'een, of course, might have seen the message of Allah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, but they didn't believe in him yet. In which you'll find that they were called Mukhaddaramin. They were not called Tabi'een. There was another tabaqa who might have seen the message of Allah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, but they did not become Muslim yet. Or they might have lived, of course, he might have been born during his time. But they were not considered Mukhaddaramin. Mukhaddaramin meaning that an actual meeting did take place between him or her during the time of the message of Allah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, that they might have seen him, or they might have heard something from him, but they did not believe in him yet. So what happened was they might have became Muslim later on. During his time, alayhi salatu wasalam, they might have became Muslim during his time, or the message of Allah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam died and then they became Muslim. Those people are called Mukhaddaramin in hadith. Mukhaddaramin. The person would say, that seems like it's a Sahabi. Not really. The Sahabi, we know, seen the message of Allah, heard from him, seen him, met him, and believed in him. That's a Sahabi. But if they might have heard or seen the message of Allah, but they didn't necessarily believe in him yet. They didn't believe in him yet. Perhaps he might have died, alayhi salatu wasalam, then they became Muslim. So you'll find that as that they say concerning these type of great people, they are considered what they call Mukhaddara. طيب, Mukhaddaramin, after them is the Tabi'een. The Tabi'een and the Tabi'een. Those who follow the Tabi'een are called the Tabi'een as we know. For verily, ya ma'ashar al-ikhwan, during these great times, this is still considered a close proximity. It's not the exact time of prophethood, but it's considered a period of time where it's close still. It's close, it's not too far off. Somewhat close, relatively speaking. Those scholars that held on to this type of belief is what Shaykh al-Islam is saying. Who are these scholars that believe as I believe? Now I'm going to bring my proof. So he brought a book from Abu Bakr al-Bayhaqi. We talked about this before. He says, Inna Allah Jalla Jalaluh wa Ta'ala Dhikruh. They used to say, we used to say, and the Tabi'un were plentiful. They were still in abundance as far as their number. Verily, indeed, Allah is above the throne. And we firmly believe of what the authentic Sunnah conveyed of those characteristics of Allah. So, this is an ittifaq, an agreement of the Tabi'un and those who follow the Tabi'un upon a statement, a belief. What is the belief, everyone? Allah is above His throne. So it's upon an affair which is what considered from Iman, in which the authentic Sunnah conveyed of those characteristics. Meaning of what the Sunnah, what has been affirmed, whether or not the affair has reached the level what they call tawatur. As we know, brothers and sisters, in regards to our aqidah and our belief concerning Allah, it is not a condition that it has to reach the level what they call tawatur. As we talked about this before. The only thing of what is important to us is the authenticity of that narration been fulfilled, or the conditions of the authenticity of the narration fulfilled. That's it. Whether or not it was conveyed from what they call tawatur. Tawatur meaning an abundant number of Sahaba conveyed it, with an abundant number of chains, or it was related what they call min khabr al-wahid, or if it was related to narrations that was conveyed through one Sahabi. Doesn't matter. Whether it was an abundant number of companions, or if it was one companion or one chain of narrators, it doesn't matter. The only thing that the affair that's important to us, if the conditions of the authenticity of the narration has been fulfilled, or if the affair has been established, whether it reached the level of what they call sihha or husn, or if it becomes sahih li dhatihi, or sahih li ghayrihi, or hasan li dhatihi, or hasan li ghayrihi. The most important thing is that these affairs have been established, and it is not a prerequisite that has reached the level of what they call tawatur. So, you'll find, as we mentioned and said, that we affirm these affairs as long as the chain has been fulfilled in regards to its authenticity. That's it. And if the chain has been established in the text, has been clearly conveyed through these great ai*immah, informing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has those characteristics, then it's incumbent upon us to do the same. Those scholars affirm that, and then likewise we do the same. You'll find that the affairs has been gathered and united upon in regards to the Sahaba. When the Sahaba, as we know, their ijma' is what is considered a hujjah. The consensus of the companions of the Messenger of Allah ﷺ is a proof in Islam, and it's from the greatest of proofs. So it's not just the kitab, it's not just the sunnah, it's also the consensus of the Sahaba that's also a hujjah. There's also a hujjah in Islam. Due to the fact you will find that the Messenger of Allah ﷺ said, مَا لَا تَجْتَمِعُ أُمَّتِي عَلَى الضَّلَالَةِ. My ummah will never gather upon misguidance. You'll find that they extracted from that benefit that the Messenger of Allah ﷺ has informed that if my companions have gathered upon an affair, it is considered what? A proof. It is a proof in Islam, and that going against the ijma' of the Sahaba is considered from the ways of those who have deviated from that which is correct. What is from the affairs that was considered an ijma', a consensus amongst the Sahaba? وكما سيأتي محل إجماع من التابعين والتابع التابعين. In addition to what we want to add to what, is there a problem? In addition to what we want to add, that the affair pertaining to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala being above the throne was an affair that was established upon the Sahaba, and who the Sahaba conveyed this information to, who are the Tabi'een. They also united upon this affair. And those who the Tabi'een conveyed this knowledge to from the Tabi'een also gathered upon this affair. So the three generations that the Messenger of Allah praised of being the best of this ummah gathered upon this matter. Which is to let you know that this affair is what they call qat'iyyatu thubut, an affair that has been clearly established without a shadow of a doubt. And that was their belief. So for the Muslims now to come in this time and say, oh, it's not an affair that we have to worry about too much. Everybody has their own opinion in the matter, and this affair is ikhtilaf. These are affairs of aqidah where it is not permissible to have ikhtilaf in it. It's not permissible to have ikhtilaf in the affairs of aqidah. Because the affair of aqidah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protected it from being tainted. For the ummah to be what? United upon the fundamentals of the religion. And from the fundamentals of the religion is the belief that Allah is above the heavens. And that is an affair that is not permissible to accept any other understanding. And that this was an affair that has been substantiated by the kitab, the sunnah, and the ijma' of the sahaba. Which we said is an affair that is a what? Hujjah. Hujjah tufid qat'iyyat al-thubut wa qat'iyyat al-dalala. An affair that necessitates qat'iyyat al-thubut wa qat'iyyat al-dalala. It necessitates that it is definite in its what? In its thubut, and what has been established, and what has been conveyed firmly, and what it indicates. Both. Why? Because you'll find from those of philosophy who've been affected by it, they'll try to differentiate between, it might have been qat'iyyat al-thubut, but it's not qat'iyyat al-dalala. It's been established as far as its authenticity. And as far as it being what? Substantiated, and everything is in its place, but it doesn't indicate anything except mere conjecture, which is absolutely confusing. What is clear cut, that has been established, qat'iyyat al-thubut, and along with that what they call qat'iyyat al-dalala. Both. For verily this ijma', as we mentioned and said, for verily the sifat that have come in the kitab and the sunnah, and what we mentioned, which is Allah being above the heavens, and Allah being above the throne, and Allah that created the heavens and the earth and that which is between them, within 6 days, and He ascended above the arsh, is an affair that was what? That was an understanding of all of the companions without any ikhtilaf. So it's an affair what they call ijma' of the tabi'een and the tabi'in. So this type of consensus, what they call ijma', which means consensus, meaning they've been united in their understanding of this affair, without any difference. Then what is the mustanad? Those Shaykh al-Islam uses as a hujjah, the consensus of the companions. So Shaykh al-Islam is saying to the Muslims, O Muslims, if you truly want to restore your honor, if you truly want the affair to be how it was during the time of old, meaning when Islam spread it and became dominant and superior, these are the affairs you have to return back to, because these are the affairs of those who are considered the prominent of this ummah warpa. And anything else is unacceptable, because this is their belief, and this is what we've been obliged to hold on to, because this is our argument and our knowledge-based proofs that we have to hold on to. We stick to the proofs, we stick to the concrete proofs and evidences and the authentic facts. And we never accept other than that. And that even goes along in our daily lives. We stick to what everyone? Authentic proofs, authentic evidences, and authentic facts. You can never argue the authentic facts. You can never argue the authentic facts, the authentic data, and the authentic proofs. When it's clear cut and it's understood, you can never argue it. And this is what Shaykh al-Islam is mentioning here. This has been established, kitab, sunnah, and the consensus of the companions of the Message of Allah, and those who are prominent, who the Message of Allah praised, where he said, Afdal ummah, what did he say? Khayr qarni ummati, or ashabi, thumma ladhina yalunahum, thumma ladhina yalunahum. That the best of my ummah is my time, meaning the companions. Then those who follow them, those who follow them. So the Message of Allah is saying that the khayriyah in this ummah, meaning the best generations, return back to that three. Those 3 generations, a Message of Allah is basically saying to his ummah, if you hold on to their understanding in these affairs, you will be guided correctly. You go away from their understanding, you have deviated, you have subjected yourself to the punishment of Allah. So these affairs are not just something that is hanging, something that is considered by choice. No, we've been obliged to hold on to it. Deviation from it, a blink of an eye will subject you to deviation, meaning those affairs that anger Allah. And the affairs that what comes as a result of it is the entrance in the hellfire if one deviates from these beliefs. And if the Ummah of Muhammad ﷺ wants their honor to be restored, they have to return back to these affairs. And you have to rid yourself of anything that contradicts it. And anything that perverts the pure Islam, the pure Orthodox Islam, the pure understanding of it, has to be what? Rid of. We have to rid ourselves of it. There is no unification that we can unify based upon perverted ideologies that anger Allah. It can never happen. And if the Muslims try to unite upon these affairs, Allah will humiliate that unification. Allah will humiliate that unification. Why? Because that type of unification is innovated and it's not blessed by Allah. Because it's not a unification that Allah wants, or in a legislative manner that Allah wants. So that's what you'll find, brothers and sisters, in regards to this matter as we mentioned. So you'll find, as we said, that this matter of affirming that Allah is above is an ijma' of the Sahaba. Similar to that, or similar to this ijma', which is the best of all ijma'at, the best of all consensus and unification of an affair. These are the matters that we hold on to. And despite of that, this characteristic, even though it's been affirmed, solidified, without any ikhtilaf, the affair of Allah being above, or Allah ascending above the throne, you'll find that the people try to make it an affair like fiqh, like it's open for ijtihad, it's open for anybody's opinion. You might believe that Allah is above, I believe Allah is everywhere, Allah, and then I can refute you in that affair. It's an open affair. It's an open affair like fiqh. There's certain matters of fiqh, certain matters of branches of the religion that, you might not agree with, I don't agree with, everybody has their own opinion. No. These are the affairs, like we said, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not only, brothers and sisters, the affair of Allah being above, it's not an affair that's been substantiated by Kitab and Sunnah and Ijma'. It's an affair that's been substantiated by all the prophets and messengers. There's not a prophet and messenger except without any exception, except all of them believe that Allah was above. If you go back to the time of Musa, when Musa came to Fir'aun, he taught Fir'aun that Allah was above until Pharaoh wanted to build a high tower. What did they say in the ayah? Ya Haman ibn li, Salahan la'alli ablughu al-asbab. أسباب السماوات فأطلع إلى موسى وإني لأظنه كاذبا. He said, "Oh Haman, build for me a high lofty tower." Pharaoh wanted to build this high lofty so I could seek the way, so I could see the deity of Musa, who he worships. Where did Pharaoh get that understanding from? Where did he get it from? He got it from Musa. Musa taught him that his Lord was above. But he wanted to insult Musa by bringing a tower and say, yeah, I can bring him something, build something high. But the point of the matter is, he believed exactly how Musa informed him, which is to let you know that the belief was established, what? With all the prophets and messengers. That this was an affair that was not just an affair that was conveyed during the time of the Messenger of Allah, and the Sahaba knew it, and the Tabi'i passed it down. This was an affair that was established from the beginning of time, from the time of the first prophet Adam. As he was a prophet, and he was also mukallam. And those who came after Adam from the Rusul, was Nuh. From those affairs, brothers and sisters, we believe as all the prophets and messengers believe. All of them. And it's not just an affair. Some people would say, oh, that's just from Muhammad ﷺ and from the Sahaba that Allah was above. No, this was an affair that was established for all the prophets and messengers. Why would we deviate from that belief and take the opinion of Greek philosophers? It doesn't make any sense. As anyway, so that's what we wanted to mention. So they'll say, Inkar min al-khalaf al-mawjudi min al-mashayikh. He said, nobody denied this affair to the so-called present-day successors came of the so-called al-mashayikh. Who are the mashayikh? Mashayikh al-ash'ariyah, the so-called scholars of those who follow Ash'ariyah, who's the majority of the Muslim world today. The majority of the Muslim world today have been affected. If not, they consider themselves from the followers of who? Abu al-Hasan Ash'ari rahimahullah, even though they don't follow him in reality. But to this very day, you'll find that they continue to deny this fact, and they will argue as if it's truly the truth. They will argue you and argue with you down to the point that will really feel in themselves that this affair has been established. Where's it been established? By Kitab and Sunnah? No, by the Aql. It's been established by the human intellect and the rationality, so-called, of the human mind, which is batil. But anyway, so this is the affairs we mentioned and said, everyone. Clarifying that the ijma' is a proof. Wanted to clarify, and those who are the prominent from the ai''imah of the Muslims, during which time, again, everyone, during the time of the Asr al-Tabi'een, these are the great prominent scholars. From them have these names memorized: the great Imam al-Awza'i, the great Imam Sufyan ibn Masruq, ibn Sa'id ibn Masruq al-Awza'i al-Iraqi from Kufa, great ai''imah. These Imams, we memorize their names: al-Imam Layth ibn Sa'id al-Fahmi, Abu al-Harith, the great Imam. Also the great Imam al-Malik al-Usbahi, Malik ibn Anas al-Usbahi, Imam al-Hijrah, that we all know. These names have to be memorized because their understandings is what the Muslims have to return in their understandings of Islam in order for their honor to be restored. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala restore the honor to the Muslims. But you'll find when it mentions, it says, وَإِذَا تَحَدَّثْنَا. Now listen to what great Imam Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah says. Let's read at the end. وإنما قال الأوزاعي هذا بعد ظهور أمر عفوا بعد ظهور أمر جهم المنكر لكون الله فوق عرشه. Verily we can, Imam al-Awza'i said, these type of positions and clarity had to be clarified to the ummah. He said, for example, clinging to the understanding of these scholars, al-Awza'i, al-Imam Malik, al-Layth ibn Sa'id, al-Thawri, clinging to their belief, clinging to their aqidah. حكى شهرة القول في زمن التابعين بالإيمان. Then you'll find that Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah, that he narrated that this affirmed famous statement that has been established in the time of the tabi'een for those who consider from strong faith, that from those affairs that they believe firmly, without any reluctancy, that Allah is above the throne, by sifatihi sam'iyyah, by those characteristics that have been conveyed through revelation. Those characteristics that have been conveyed and affirmed through what they call a sifat al-sam'iyyah, meaning a sifat al-naqliyah, or you could call it a sifat al-khabariyah, meaning the characteristics of Allah that have been conveyed purely through what everyone? Revelation, not through opinion, not from what you feel, not from what you think, not from what you rationalize, nor from what you so-called consider what agrees with the human mind. No, of what has been clearly established by the revelation, whether or not it opposes your thinking. Rather, we talked about on many occasions, the human mind was created to submit to the revelation, not to be dominant over it. The dominant factor is the what? The wahy. The revelation in which Allah sent down was made to guide the intellect to the proper understanding. The people who are part of Greek philosophy have been affected by it, take the human mind, and they make the revelation dictate where it has to go. That's the problem. And that's why they deny that Allah is what? Above. Because they made their rationality the dictator over the revelation, when they were supposed to do the opposite. They made the revelation dictate and guide the human mind to how it's supposed to be rightly guided in all of their affairs. Not just in the affairs that pertain to Allah, but even their affairs in their daily lives. We do the exact same methodology, whether it be in our belief with our Lord and the belief that we apply in our daily lives and our daily dealings amongst the people. We let the revelation guide our minds, guide our emotions, guide our rationality, guide what we think. We might think one way, and we really might think it's something that's good. Then you'll find that the revelation comes to tell you, no, don't do it that way, do it this way. What's been abided upon us to what? Submit to it. And let our emotions be guided by the revelation. And our way of thinking be guided by the revelation. And our knowledge of our Lord be guided by the revelation. That's why we've been created. And that's what's considered truly the ubudi of Allah Ta'ala. So this is what we're going to say. وَإِنَّمَا قَالْ الْأَوْزَاعِي, that Imam al-Awza'i, that he mentions this, هَذَا بَعْدَ ظُهُورِ أمر جهم المنكر لكون الله. Barely these facts had to be established. As we just mentioned, he said after the affair of Jahm of Safwan manifest, which is the denial or the rejection of Allah being above the throne. A person might say, especially during these days and times, especially you've heard this type of shanshanat, or these type of rampant and raving of what they call shanshanat yudaddinun hawlahu or hawlaha ahl batil mubtilun, from these different types of doubtful matters and different types of rapping and raving and boasting and bragging about certain things. And from those affairs you'll find that's been from the cause of modern day society of certain callers. You guys busy yourselves with things that are just old and ancient. You waste your time. There is no deviant sect called the Jahmiyyah. Why are you even studying this? You'll find that they mention and say that, from historical aspect of the affair, it's good to know. It's good to know that, there was a deviant sect called the Jahmiyyah. But at the end of the day, nobody's affected by it. So there's no deviant sect called Jahmiyyah these days. This type of call is batil. Why, everyone? What is correct is there is no deviant sect of today, which is what they call Ta'ifatul Mustaqilatu Liwahdiha Tusamma Jahmiyyah, where there's an actual so-called group called the Jahmiyyah by the name Jahmiyyah. But why do we mention it? Why? Because their ideologies are still prevalent and still famous to today. That's why we study it. So don't let someone come to you and say you're wasting your time with affairs that are just historical. There's no Jahmiyyah today. Rather, the start of the denial that Allah is above the heavens was an affair that was started by the Jahmiyyah. And how many Muslims out there today believe that Allah is not above? Millions. So that lets you know that what? The Jahmiyyah and their ideologies are still present, and we have to what? Teach the people and educate them about it. And clarify to the people that these affairs are in opposition to what Allah Ta'ala had revealed to the Messenger of Allah, what the Messenger revealed, and what he taught to the Sahaba. And that this is the matter, that if the Muslims was to return back to it, this will restore their superiority, how you say it? The superiority. Say it again. Superiority. Exactly. This will restore their domination, power, and superiority over the creation. Alhamdulillah, I got used to it that fast. So these are the affairs that has caused humiliation to descend upon the Muslims. Why? Because they abandoned this matter, and as a result of it, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala rendered their affair extremely weak. You'll find the narrations during the time of the Salaf, especially during Umar al-Khattab, that he said in the Athar, he said, يُهْدَمُ الْإِسْلَامِ بِثَلَاثَةٍ. يُهْدَمُ الْإِسْلَامِ بِثَلَاثَةٍ. This is a benefit that I want to get to when I mention this. That Islam will be destroyed. The word hadam means destroyed, right? That Islam will be destroyed by three. Now listen to this. زَلَّ تَعَالَى وَمُنَافِقْ وَجِدَالُ مُنَافِقْ بِالْقُرْآنِ وَأَئِمَّةٌ مُضِلُّونَ. He said, Islam will be destroyed by three. You'll find that the ulama, when they clarified the statement that the word destruction doesn't mean that Islam will be wiped out. Shaykh Umar al-Khattab was saying here that the meaning of hadam, or they say, the explanation isn't that it means that Islam will be rendered deficient, meaning its strength, its honor, its domination. It's superior, say it again. No, superiority. Being superior. He's superior, say it again. Superiority. Gee, I did it. But at any rate, it will be rendered, these affairs of his dominance, his power, his honor will be rendered what? Deficient. It will be weak. What will render it weak? He said, Zalla ta'ala. Following the mistakes of A'alim. Following his mistakes, or his mistakes and using it as a way. See, the ulama different, knowing that they know the clear proofs, and then following it, and accepting it, and taking those what? Tatabbu'u rukhas. Those affairs that are what? Trying to find a leeway to agree with your desire in a certain fatwa. Right? Then the second, he said, جدال المنافق بالقرآن. جدال المنافق بالقرآن. He said the disputation or argumentation of a hypocrite by using the Quran as a proof. The argument or the one who tries to debate using the Quran as an argument. Right? And the third is where he said, أَئِمَّةٌ مُضِلُّونَ. Those scholars and those leaders that will what? Misguide the Muslims or lead them astray. The point of the matter is, as far as in regards to the hypocrite, we know the Prophet ﷺ had an authentic hadith, which has been informed that the Messenger of Allah ﷺ said, أَخْوَفُ مَا أَخَافُ عِنْدَ أُمَّتِي مُنَافِقٌ عَلِيمُ اللِّسَانِ. The most I have fear for my ummah, he says, as a hypocrite, that he's well versed in his tongue. He's well versed with his tongue. Meaning he might have something of what? Quran memorized. And rather there's another narration where the Imam al-Albani had gathered its authenticity in so many what? Turuq. So many chains. أَكْثَرُ مُنَافِقِي أُمَّتِي قُرَّأُهَا. The majority of the hypocrites of my ummah is its reciters, which is also authentic. Those affairs, ya ma'ash al-ikhwa, what I wanted to use in this other pertaining to the lesson, because I want to correlate it, because I want to go outside the subject, that he said, yuhdamul Islam, that Islam will be destroyed. The meaning of it is that it will not be wiped out, because we know we have the authentic hadith of the Messenger of Allah said, لا تزال طائفة من أمتي إيش ظاهرين أو منصورة ظاهرين على الحق منصورين لا يضرهم من خذلهم ولا من خالفهم حتى يأتي أمر الله وهم على ذلك. We have that hadith. It's clear. There will always be a group from my ummah that will never cease to be upon the truth. Manifest upon was correct, aided by Allah. So Islam will never be what? Destroyed until the affair, but the Messenger of Allah did give the time where it will stop. Where he said, until the affair of Allah comes. Meaning, that when that Allah will send, and He will take all of the believers, of those who have Iman, or any traces of Iman, until the day of resurrection will not be established except the most evil creation. But at the end of time, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will remove everything. Anything of good, anything of Iman, everything of revelation, and its people will be removed. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will take them all. He will take the Quran away, He will remove everything, and from those affairs He will take is also the people of the Sunnah will be also removed from this earth. Until the day of resurrection will be established upon the most evil creation. And from those affairs you'll find that there is a time frame that the Messenger of Allah gave detail when the day of resurrection will be established, and how the people will be pushed towards Sham. And they will be the people that's left, and they will be pushed to what they call Abdul Mahshar, the place of gathering when the day of resurrection will be established. Then it will be two shepherds. At any rate, I don't want to talk about that right now. Let's go back to the subject. But anyway, so what is mentioned in saying is, the Jahmiyyah, there is no specific group called the Jahmiyyah of today, but we say that we study these affairs due to the fact that what everyone, that their ideologies and their beliefs are prevalent, rather they are famous in the Muslim world. So that's the reason why we teach the people these affairs of what they call the ideologies of Jahl and Safwan, based upon these reasons we just mentioned. So no one tried to say that these affairs of today are historical matters that have taken place in the past. It's not really important. Why do the Muslims busy themselves with this nonsense and wasted their time of Jahmiyyah and wasted their time of studying who the Jahmiyyah were, the Mu'tazila? It's historical facts that's been established. But at the end of the day, there is no group called the Jahmiyyah, so why waste your time? We just clarified by it. The majority of the Muslim world carry their what? Beliefs. And from the most famous of them is that Allah is not above the heavens. And there are thousands and now millions of Muslims that believe these affairs. And even in Philadelphia, I think it's well established. There are people that carry these perverted ideologies, and these are one of the reasons of why Allah's wrath has descended upon the creation. Because of these type of adopted ideologies and corrupt beliefs that the people, not only have they accepted it, they even teach the other people, and they firmly believe it. And they will argue and they will fight you over it. Over a fact that has not been substantiated from any revelation, not from anything during the time of the prophets and the messengers of the first who Allah sent, nor to the final prophet to humanity, nor from those who had taken knowledge from them from the Sahaba. This affair has been unanimous, clearly established, affair that's been unified upon, not from just the message of Allah, from all the prophets and messengers. And still you'll find that they will argue down to say that this is not the haqq, because it doesn't agree with the intellect or the rationality of the mind, or the hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. So this is what we mentioned to say. We'll wrap up and stop here. The denial of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala being above the creation is a matter, like we said, that was conveyed from its founder, but he was not the one who initially started the group, but he was the one that made it famous, Jahm al-Safwan, and whoever studies the Aqidah of today, and it was to now study what the Asha'ira are upon, in which day you will find that they announce from time to time that the great Imam Muhammad al-Jabi says, يُعْلِنُوا مِنْ وَقْتٍ لِلْآخَرِ بِأَنَّهُمْ أَهْلُ السُنَّةِ وَالْجَمَاعَةِ. He said, you'll even find that they try to deceive the people, that they announce from one time to the next that they are the people of Sunnah and the people of the Jama'ah. The Jama'ah meaning the Sahaba. The Jama'ah here, brothers and sisters, mean a Jama'atul Ula uhum as-Sahaba. The first Jama'ah who are the companions. So when you hear Ahl Sunnah and Al-Jama'ah, Al-Jama'atul Ula, the first Jama'ah, meaning the Jama'ah that had taken knowledge directly from the message of Allah, who are the companions. The majority of the Muslims, what you'll find, Jamhul al-Muslimin al-Mutaqabilin al-Mu'tazila, أي هم الناس وحدهم هؤلاء هم الذين يعتقدون الآن. You'll find that they so-called, even that who passed on this ideology to the next group who came after, the Mu'tazila, still have been affected by the Jahmiyyah. And they will argue with you saying clearly, Allah is not above. Doesn't agree with the rationality of the human intellect nor mind. We deny it. No. So these affairs, you'll find the benefit of studying this history is to clarify how all these ulama of the past and what was their position in regards to it. So we hold on to it, not to deviate away from it a blink of a second, because if we do that, the ultimate destruction will come down. There's a particular athar that I'm going to bring next class, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala destroyed a nation and a city because they adopted the ways of the Mu'tazila. I'll bring it, it's in Aqidah to Salaf, I have it there. Bring it next class, I'll bring it tomorrow. That Allah eradicated and He finished off the Khilafah al-Abbasiyah, because when they started adopting the ways and the ideologies of the philosophers, is when Allah's wrath descended upon, as a result of it, He wiped it out. People look at me like I'm crazy. I'll bring that up tomorrow, I'll read it to you. In which Ibn al-Qayyim conveyed. As a matter of fact, Shaykh al-Islam and Ibn al-Qayyim conveyed it. He said, when the Muslims started adopting these ideologies, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's wrath descended upon them and He wiped them out as a result of embracing and adopting these perverted, disgusting, filthy ideologies. We'll talk about it later, and I'll bring the other tomorrow, inshallah. I'll bring it. I have it in the office. I know where it's in my notes, and we'll bring it, inshallah. Alhamdulillah, Aqidah Tasawwuf Ashab al-Hadith, we completed it years ago. Half of it I did here in Philadelphia, the rest of it in Washington, D.C. So inshallah, I'll bring it next class. These are the type of books we need to hold on to and realize that Allah's wrath is descended. Brothers and sisters, realize that the affair is not just LGBTQ. The affair is worse than that. To make war, Aqidah to Salaf, is worse than LGBTQ. Keep that in your mind. War with the Aqidah of Allah, war with Tawheed, and war with the Sunnah are worse than LGBTQ. It's worse. Those affairs will allow wrath to descend immediately. That's the reason why we teach these books, clarifying the correct Aqidah, so the Muslims hold on to their mullah-teeth, so we can prevent these affairs from happening. The only people that Allah knows best that are trying to fight Allah's anger and His wrath and descending upon communities are the Salafis, and those who are trying to hold on and convey to what's right. Once they're gone and they're going to command the good, forbid the evil, by calling the people to what's correct and condemning them for the evil, filthy acts that they're doing, that's when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will send down a major consequence upon the nations. It could be a major earthquake. It could be a tornado. You never know what form of punishment Allah sent down upon the creation. May Allah protect us and you from that. Once there are callers that will now be quiet, like the rest of these other deviant imams of these masajid that remain quiet, they're the people that's now inciting the wrath of Allah by them being quiet about certain affairs and not clarifying to the people the truth. Allah's wrath and His anger is no comparison to what the people can do. I mean, in comparison to what Allah can do, despite of what you fear of the people. Excuse me. This is the reason why we teach these matters, clarifying to the people what's correct, so they can return back to it, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can restore the honor back to the Muslims. And we'll stop here. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to benefit from what we heard. And we'll continue next class, inshallah. Tomorrow, and I'll bring the benefit. I'll look at my office right now, and I'll give it to everyone tomorrow, inshallah. Remind me when everyone comes to class, inshallah. هذا وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك وأشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. There's a question. Ali, let's تفضل.
What is the mean by جدال المنافق في القرآن?
I said again, جدال المنافق في القرآن.
Yeah.
The meaning of it is that you'll find that is there any deviant sect out there except you'll find that they use the Quran as a proof. Is there any person out there who doesn't use the Quran? They don't use the Quran in order to so-called establish their falsehood? Don't they bring ayat? Don't they bring verses to confuse the people? The majority of the people deviant sects of today, except maybe few certain, except Zakir Naik might bring the Bible and argue with the people. But anyway, majority of the people who try to deceive the Muslims of today use the Quran. Those who are upon wicked ways. You'll find that the Salaf, and we're going to talk about this author is here in this book, it's in here. He said that Umar al-Khattab said, the Quran is Hammal al-Wujuh. The Quran, the verses in the Quran carries Hammal al-Wujuh. That if you was to read it and you don't have proper knowledge of certain affairs, you can take some type of wicked understanding and use it for your own desires. He said, however, argue with them with the proofs of the Sunnah. Why? Because the Sunnah will clarify the proper understanding of those verses, so the one who wants to manipulate can't use those verses in order to suit his desires to misguide the people by it. So that's what he's talking about. So you'll find that the Messenger of Allah said that there will be hypocrites from his ummah that are educated in their tongue, well-versed, using the Quran as a what? Argument. Till Umar al-Khattab said that what will be the reasons of rendering this ummah very weak is jidal al-munafiq bil-Quran. The one who disputes, of a hypocrite that disputes and argues and debates by using the Quran. And if you look some of the debates of the people of the past, from the Mu'tazila and from Bishop Milisi and other than them, you'll find that they try to use certain verses. But you'll find that the Imam will combat it by what? What's the understanding of the verse? So let's go back to what Ibn Abbas said. Let's go back to what this Tabi'i said. Let's go back to this. So you can now understand the verse in this proper way. So you're going to try to use that verse to what? Misguide the people by it. There's another narration where the Messenger of Allah has said, it's also authentic, which is in Al-Silsila Ahadith Al-Sahiha, where you'll find that he said, Halaku ummati fil kitab wal labn. The destruction of my ummah will come as a result of the book. He's talking about the Quran. What is he speaking about? He saw a message of Allah. Who are they? Mahum. He said, Qawmun yaqra'un al-Quran fayatawwalunahu ala ghayri ma anzal Allah. He said there will be a people that will what? They will recite the Quran and read it, and they will misinterpret it in a way other than how Allah revealed it and how Allah intended it to be understood. For example, how many people we have from the Nation of Islam? They use verses in the Quran. Farrakhan, who's a Mason, and also Elijah Muhammad, who's a Mason. But at any rate, yes, they were Masons. They were Masons. At any rate, you'll find that he says, that's وَنَحْشُ الْمُجْرِمِينَ يَوْمَئِذٍ, on the day of resurrection, Zurqa. He uses a verse. We'll gather the criminals on the day of resurrection who are blue-eyed. See, that means the white man. He used the verse in the Quran. So how do you refute this nonsense? Because that he's using, yes, the din. He's now using a evidence. from the ways of Ahl Sunnah, our minhaj is what, everyone? What is our minhaj? Our minhaj is we use the evidence, then we get an understanding. The people of bid'ah is the opposite. What do? They have an understanding, then they seek the evidence to justify it. Is it clear? That's a methodology you have to learn. Keep this in your mind. The people of what? The people of Sunnah read the verses, then they extract the understanding from the verse after they obtain the evidence, especially the affairs of Aqidah. إيش يستدلون ثم إيش يفهمون أو يستخرجون فائدة أو فهم. The people of bid'ah, they come with a what? Ideology first, then they try to look for something to justify it by bringing out evidence. Right? طيب, you'll find that if you go back to the understanding of the verse that we will gather the criminals on the day of resurrection, blue eye, where's the evidence? What is the evidence? Go back to the tafsir. Everybody can open up their tafsir, look to the ayahs in Surah Taha. It's there. When you look to the ayah, Ibn Abbas said that the meaning of it, you'll find there is nothing in the tafsir where the Messenger of Allah said that had to do with anything with the white man. Nothing. So what's the meaning of the ayah? Ibn Abbas said, and other than them, from the Sahaba and the Tabi'een, who are from them, Mujahid ibn Jabbar, the one who took the verses of every verse in the Quran and said that I stopped Ibn Abbas at every ayah, asking him concerning it. What was the understanding of it? Who the Messenger of Allah made dua that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala what? Give him proper understanding of the Quran, the interpretation of the verses, right? But the tafsir of it is this. He said that the people on the day of resurrection, certain people will come on the day of resurrection in a state of severe horror to the point their eyes will turn blue. That's how the horror and the fright of the people on the day of resurrection will be. You will never find in the tafsir that it means the blue-eyed devil is the white man. The white man with the blue eyes is the devil. So my thing is, even for rationality, it doesn't make sense because there's white people out there that don't have blue eyes. Is it? No, majority of them, they're going mixed color. Oh yeah, right, my fault. I'm sorry. They're mixed colored. Some blue eyes, some got other color eyes. Specifically blue eyes. Nonsense. But the point of the matter is, you see, the message of Allah, what he said is clear. What I'm afraid for my ummah is who? A person who is what? A hypocrite, and he's very well versed in their tongue. Listen to Farrakhan. Don't listen to him. But if you hear his very eloquent in speech, he is the most decorated, embellished speech I've heard, even though it's just pure nonsense. Anybody who has knowledge knows that he's an idiot. And all he does is just uses emotional, motivational speech tactics to get the people riled up. Especially people from the African Americans. They like to give them inspiring motivational speech, like the pastors in the churches. That's all they do. It's just motivational, inspiring speech to get the people motivated. But it's just all falsehood. You're still not teaching them how to live. It's just nonsense. But those are the affairs of the man. I want to keep the lesson long. Just stop here, inshallah. طيب. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى اله وصحبه. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك. أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.